Hello students, in this video I'm going to explain a new chapter from your Supplementary English Reader, that is Footprints Without Feet. And the name of the chapter is also the same as the name of the textbook, that is Footprints Without Feet, chapter 5. And it is written by H.G. Wells. So in this chapter, the chapter or the story talks about an invisible man. This is a story of a scientist who discovers how to make himself invisible. So it's a very interesting chapter. It is written in a simple language you will be able to understand. So I'll be explaining this chapter and also give out the word meanings. So let us start the chapter. Chapter 5, Footprints Without Feet, written by the author H.G. Wells. Okay, now the story begins in this way. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh, muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? As they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. So the story begins with the two boys. So there were two boys. They saw a very fresh, muddy impression, footprints. Okay, only a footprints, a fresh, muddy footprints of a bear of bare feet. So they were very surprised, and that footprints was seen on the steps of a house in the middle of London. So they were so surprised, and they wanted to find out whose footprints it was. They couldn't see a man. There was no one, but they could see only the footprints. So these two boys, they were very surprised. So as they looked intently, there was a remarkable sight. That is, a remarkable sight is that they saw the footprints which were a fresh, muddy impressions, but from where it has come, it was not known to them. So that was the remarkable sight, a very surprising sight for the two boys. Further footprints followed, one after another, descending the steps and progressing down the street. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter, and at last disappeared altogether. So what they saw was that these footprints, the footprints followed one after the another. There was no one, they could not see anyone, but the footprints can be seen one after the another, because there was someone who was walking. We all know that is the invisible man. Okay, so the footprints followed one after the another, descending, going down the steps, and it was progressing down the street. So these two boys, they followed because they were fascinated. Fascinated means they were attracted by that. They haven't seen like this before, and it was very surprising for them. And they were so much attracted that these two boys, they followed the footprints, because the footprints were moving ahead. Okay, and so they followed the footprints until the footprints became fainter and fainter, and at last the footprints disappeared. The muddy impressions, okay, it disappeared altogether. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. So the narrator here, or the author or the writer, says that the explanation of the mystery means something which is very difficult to understand. The boys, they couldn't understand what was the mystery. Okay, what is the mystery? They couldn't understand. Whose footprints was that, and why the footprints was moving one after the another, why it was descending the steps, okay, why it was progressing down the street. They couldn't understand. So it was a mystery. It was something very difficult to understand. So the bewildered boys, bewildered means very confused or puzzled. Okay, so these two boys who were very much confused, They were following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. So whose footprints were those? It was the footprints of a scientist who had recently discovered how to make the human body transparent or invisible. Okay, now let us see. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body would become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as a glass. So this was the footprints of, or the impression, the muddy impressions belongs to Griffin. The name of the scientist is Griffin. Keep it in your mind, okay? So Griffin, the scientist, he had carried out experiment after experiment, which means again and again, in order to prove that the human body could become invisible. And finally, he swallowed. He swallowed means he ate, okay, or he drank rare drugs, and his body became transparent, okay, as a sheet of a glass. Though it was as solid as a glass, but his body became transparent, invisible. Brilliant scientist though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. To get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus it was that he became a homeless wanderer, without clothes, without money, and quite invisible until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. So now from this paragraph, we came to know how the footprints, how his footprints had got fresh mud on it. Okay, so the brilliant scientist. Brilliant means extremely or exceptionally clever and talented. A very talented scientist. Though he was very talented, though he was very brilliant, this Griffin was a lawless person. Lawless means a person who does not obey the law. Okay, so why is the narrator saying that Griffin, though he is a brilliant scientist, he is a lawless person? Because his landlord, he was staying in a rented house. Okay, so his landlord disliked him and he tried to eject him. Eject means he tried to throw him out of the house, which means the landlord doesn't want this Griffin, the scientist, to stay in his house, and he tried to even throw him out of the house. So he got so angry. So once he discovered, okay, that his experiment was successful, he wanted to take a revenge. So in revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. See, he is lawless person. Okay, this is the reason why it is written lawless person. He doesn't follow any law. Okay, so he set fire to the house, and to get away without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Okay, he removed his clothes and with his bare body. Okay, if he wear clothes, then others will be able to see him. So in order to be invisible, what he has to do, now he has already discovered he used certain drugs, okay, and now he has to remove his clothes to be invisible. So he set fire, okay, to the house, and he removed his clothes to get away without being seen by others. So he ran away, okay, from that very house, and he became a homeless wanderer. Homeless wanderer means a person who just goes on wandering here and there, doesn't have a proper house. Okay, so he became a homeless. Homeless means he doesn't have a home. So he became homeless wanderer, and he wandered without clothes, without money, and quite invisible. Others couldn't see him. So one day it so happened that he stepped, okay, in some mud, okay, in some mud here, and this is the reason why he left the footprints as he walked. If his body is bare, then others wouldn't be able to see him. But one day, okay, he stepped in a mud, okay, and his feet was stained with mud. Okay, and so this is the reason why he left footprints as he walked. Now let us see in the next page. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London, but these adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold, and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So in the beginning, we have seen the two boys were following him. Okay, so he escaped easily from there, from the boys who were following his footprints in London. But his adventures means exciting experience. Okay, his exciting experience were by no means over, which is that was not only the experience that he had, but there were again many more experiences that he had experienced as an invisible man. So as he ran away, that invisible man, that is the scientist Griffin, as he ran away, he had chosen a bad time of the year. So narrator says that he has chosen the bad time of the year because why he said so? Because it was in the midwinter and he discovered that, okay, and he became invisible. And it was in the midwinter, the air was bitterly cold, it was too cold, okay, and it was unbearable for him to bear the extreme coldness. And without clothes, it was very difficult for him to survive. Okay, so instead of walking about the streets, because he has already become a wanderer, he doesn't have a proper home, so he keeps on wandering without food, without clothes. Okay, so he felt so cold that one day, instead of walking about the streets, he decided to get into a big London store for warmth. For warmth means in order to cover his body, in order to warm himself. Though he was invisible, he was without clothes, and so he was feeling so cold. Okay, so he wanted to warmed his body. So closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat, and a white brimmed hat, he became a fully dressed and visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. So he entered, okay, he got into a big London store. Okay, so it was a closing time. So the owners or the person who were there in that shop, they closed. Okay, and as soon as they went away closing the door, before that, okay, Griffin, an invisible man, had entered that store where where all the things are available in that store. So he entered, so he was invisible, and so the shop owners or the salesman, they couldn't see him, so he entered. Whereas the others, since it was a closing time, they closed the store and they left to their houses. So he broke open the boxes and the wrappers, okay, to take out the new clothes, the warm clothes. And he started putting all those clothes. And he even took shoes also, and overcoat also, and hat also. You can see in the picture the hat. White brimmed hat means aged, okay, hat. So the hat, okay, the coat, the overcoat. So he became fully dressed. And once he became fully dressed, he became a visible person. Others can see him, okay, but now in the store he was alone, so he became a visible person. And down there in the kitchen of the restaurant, because that store was a very big store where everything was available, there was restaurant also, there was a corner where the clothes are being sold out, okay, he could find everything there in the store. So he went into the kitchen of the restaurant and he found some cold meat and coffee, and he ate that. And after that he had meal with sweets and wine, okay, which were taken from the grocery store. So finally he settled down to sleep. His stomach was full, okay, he was fully dressed, he felt very warmed, okay, he felt very comfortable, and he felt so sleepy that he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. Okay, now let us see the next. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. So the narrator says that if this scientist Griffin had managed to wake up early, then he could have escaped. But he woke up very lately that he fall into a problem. Okay, so He did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning, which means he woke up only after the assistants came to the store. Now next, when he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and began to run. They naturally gave chase. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So once more he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January air. So the assistants, they came and he was sleeping. So he woke up, okay, and he was no more an invisible because he was wearing those clothes. So he was visible, and the assistants, they saw him, okay. So they saw him. They saw, and he saw a couple of them. Couple of them means two assistants were there, okay, and he also saw them, and he panicked. Panic means he got scared and nervous. And what this Griffin did, Griffin began to run, and the others also, these assistants, okay, they also gave a chase. They ran after him, okay, and in the end he was able to escape. How? That is by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. Only after removing his clothes he becomes invisible, right? So he goes on taking out his clothes one by one, okay. So suppose if he removes his hat, okay, the hat, okay, which he was putting, the cap, okay, then his head will become invisible. And if he removes his coat, okay, then he will become, his body, upper body will become invisible. If he removes one of his shoes, then one of the foot will become invisible, like that, okay. So he started removing all his clothes one after the other, and lastly he removed everything and he became naked, and then he became invisible, okay. So this is how he escaped from them. So once more, Griffin the scientist, he found himself invisible, but he was naked in the chill January air. It was very cold, okay, in the mid of January, okay. So the January air, it was in the winter and it was very cool, but he was once again he found himself invisible but naked. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulders. Shivering with cold, he hurried to Land, the center of the theater world. Okay, so now after escaping from there, he hurried to Land. Land is the name of the street, okay, and that was the center of the theater world. Theater, the actors, okay, actresses, they perform on the they used to perform a play, right? And to perform, they use different kinds of props, okay, like artificial mustache, artificial hair, okay, which are used by the actors. So he went to that street, that is Land, and he got inside the center of the theater world, okay. So he decided, okay, he decided to try the props of that theatrical company, which were used by the actors, okay, in order to cover up himself and in order to hide himself, okay. So shivering with cold, he hurried there. So he soon found a suitable shop. He made his way invisible upstairs and came out with a little later, wearing bandages round his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, big pushy white side whiskers, and a large hat. To escape without being seen, he callously attacked the shopkeeper from behind, after which he robbed him of all the money he could find. So there in the Land, in that street, that was the center of the theater world, okay. So there were many stores, okay, where the props were being sold. So he soon found a suitable shop and he made his way invisible, which means he was invisible, okay, and without being seen by anyone, he entered that shop, okay, and he went upstairs, and after that he came out, okay. The shop owner also didn't see him, the shopkeeper. So he went inside, and after that he took all those things, okay, without paying money, right? So he stole, okay. So he took everything, and later on he came out visible, okay. First he went inside invisible, but he came out visible with like bandages, okay, wearing bandages around his forehead, again dark glasses, false nose, artificial nose. Again, big bushy side whiskers, okay, whiskers were also put on his face, and a large head, okay. And again, in order to escape without being seen, what he did was that he callously means cruel disregard for others, okay. So he callously attacked the shopkeeper from behind. Why he attacked him from behind? So that he won't be caught, so that he won't be the shopkeeper won't recognize him, okay. Because shopkeeper didn't know that he had gone inside, because he was invisible, okay. So he went inside and he dressed up himself, and he came out, and from behind he attacked him. And not only he attacked him, but he robbed, okay, he stole money, okay, he robbed him all the money. It's written here, all the money, whatever the shopkeeper had, okay, he took away all the money, okay, that he could find, and he ran away from there. So here he is a lawless person, a person who doesn't obey the law. He is a very great scientist, a very brilliant scientist, but on the other hand, he was a lawless person, okay. He discovered something very good, but he was expected to do something good, but he didn't do that. He was a very lawless person, and this time he attacked the shopkeeper from behind, and added with that, he robbed him, okay. He robbed all the money, and he ran away from there, okay. So the next part I will explain in the next video. So thank you for watching this video.